Good, yours? Yeah, 701. Okay. I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, July 13th, 2026 at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk Schmelzer, please call the roll.
Here. Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here. Here. Okay, we have no proclamations or presentations this evening. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda that members of the commission would like to propose at this time? Not seen any. Do we have is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
A second.
Okay. Motion to approve the agenda as presented was made by Vice Mayor Eke and seconded by Commissioner Demarath. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay, at this time, we will move on into public inputs on agenda items. If you are a member of the public and would like to give comments on any item that is on the agenda, please step up to the microphone. You'll be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record, as well as what item you are speaking on. If you are using Zoom, please use the raised hand function to indicate you would like to speak. And are there any emails at this time? Okay, any raised hands on Zoom? Okay. Not seeing our crowded audience chamber rushing with people to step up. I will go ahead and close public input on agenda items at this time. And we will move into receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSense, if you would.
Receipt of petitions and communications this evening includes monthly report on police-related citizen complaints, notice of temporary traffic control orders number 1, 2, and 3, 2026, correspondence from resident with ordinance suggestions, and correspondent from community partner regarding housing-related concerns.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us right into our consent agenda then as well. So Manager DeSense, if you would continue.
Yep. Consent items this evening include approval of minutes from the regular meeting held June 22nd, 2026, approval of minutes from the closed session held June 22nd, 2026, consider Broadway Theater request for club license, consider approval of the purchase of a mobile electric generator for the water department from Americas Generators for $98,999, and approval of payrolls and warrants.
Okay. Are there any items in the consent agenda members of the commission would like moved into the regular agenda at this time? Commissioner Alsager?
Number 7.
Number 7, consider Broadway Theater request for club license. Okay, we will move that into new business and we're just going to tack it onto the end of the regular, the already listed items, if that's all right. So we will return to number 7. Other items members of the commission would like removed from the consent agenda at this time. Any questions? Not seen any. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as modified.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Eke to approve the consent agenda as modified, seconded by Commissioner Alsager. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. There are no public hearings this evening, so that is going to bring us straight into new business. First item on the agenda is number 10. This will be to consider a resolution to authorize the issuance of up to 30 million of revenue bonds for the water plant improvement project. Manager DeSense, if you would like to give us some background.
If I could, I'm going to have Division Director Jason Moore come up. He's going to give a presentation just on the project in general, because this will be related to items number 10, 11, and 12. And I think it'd just be helpful for us to have a presentation on that project before we start talking about the money to be spent on the contract awards and everything.
Certainly, yeah. So items number 10, 11, and 12 all fall well into the domain of Director Moore here. They're all related to our ongoing upgrades for water services within the city. So we have Director Moore, if you would.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. I just want to give a rundown. We've talked about this project for quite some time now. In fact, we started planning for it in 2023 with the project plan, the overall project plan. And we're currently working on phase 1 at the water plant right now. But tonight you've got several things on your agenda for the phase 2 drinking water state revolving fund projects at the water plant. The DWSRF program, as an overview, is funded through the Michigan Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. Our phase 2 total that we were originally approved for was $27.9 million with $6.4 million in principal forgiveness. And the remainder is in low interest loans. We received bids, and we actually, once we total up all the projects, we're at just under 32 million with contingencies. And I should say, the state has gotten us up to 30 million for state revolving funds. They've went from that 27.9 up to 30 million to get us in the program. If you recall, phase 1 was all about interior to the plant. It was replacing filter, media, valves, piping, anything really that hadn't been already rehabbed since the plant was built in '94. And so phase 1 is underway right now. They're actually kind of waiting on some of the heavier lifts for when our demand starts to settle down in the fall. But they have been doing work over there. They've painted, and they've been getting all of their equipment ready and staged for the future work. But tonight we're talking about phase 2. Phase 2 is all about storage. Water storage and getting rid of some of the old infrastructure that we've got at the island facility. And so it's addressing aging infrastructure. We're going to improve the reliability by elevating the electrical control gear there at the island to be above the 100-year floodplain. And we're going to eliminate some outdated and inefficient structures, demolish the old tanks and the pump and the high service building. So here's a aerial view of the island. You can see that large white circle there is the newer finished water storage. That's a 2 million gallon tank. That darker, the black circle to the right is the original water storage. That's got the high service pump station actually built right on top of it. And then up in the upper left corner, that's the Ranny well. And so the Ranny well, that was built in the early 60s. And so was that original water storage, the 1 million, underneath the high service. And then that 2 million tank was built in the 70s. So just to touch on the Randy well, we will continue to use that after this project's done. We're going to rehab that. It's where we get our really the highest quality water that we get. It's already fairly soft water. It's the way it works is a big caisson that goes deep into the ground, and then there's these lateral fingers that come out from that caisson, and those fingers are what draw in the groundwater into the caisson, and then it's pumped out. Through this work, we will have new 60 horse motors. We'll have a new 300 kilowatt diesel generator. They're on standby, and we'll be, what we found as we were doing the design work is that we're probably less on the lateral rehab side of things and more on the lateral additions, because a lot of those laterals were not in a condition that we'll be able to rehab. And so on this portion of the project, we only have one bidder. This is fairly specialized work, and so there's not a lot of folks out there that do it. But they came in at just under 2.5 million, and that was in where we kind of expected it to be, so it wasn't a major surprise there. Now on the demolition and the new storage, we actually had a lot of bidders. I don't know if you'll recall, but phase 1 and 2 of the water resource recovery, I think phase 2, we only had one bidder. I think we may have had 2 in the phase 1. Phase 1 water, we only had one bidder. So it was, I was glad to see a number of bidders on this one. So even though it did come in higher than we were hoping for, all those bidders were pretty tight as far as their grouping for cost. And so we think we've got a pretty good value here. And that bid from Source and Gross came in at just under $25.5 million. And they will be demolishing the 1 million and the 2 million ground storage at the island, as well as the high service pumps that are on top of that 1 million gallon tank. And they're going to build new raw water storage, 1 million gallons of raw water storage, which will be new for our system. It'll give us some more options as far as operations go. We'll be able to utilize that rainy well even more because we'll be able to store up water from that well overnight potentially. We'll have that new raw water. All of the storage will be right next to the water plant where it's currently at, which is that's updating the whole system too, because originally all of that was built down by the Ranny well because it just got pumped directly from the Ranny to those storage tanks. And that's there was no treatment plant back then. So now all this stuff is getting reconfigured so that it's going to exist next to the plant where it probably ought to have been all along if we started from scratch. So that new raw water storage, that'll come with new low service pumps, 330 horsepower pumps, and new electrical and controls. And the new high service pumps, those will be set next to there'll be 2 finished water tanks, 1.5 million gallons each. Rather than having that high service set on top of that tank, they're off to the side. So that's a more modern design where it offers, we can shut down one of those tanks so we can clean it and inspect it and all that and keep the other one running. And it's just a much more resilient setup. One thing that changed from the last time I gave this presentation to you is that with the bids that came in, we are going with an alternate. Our engineer bid that with an alternate built in so that we could find out what the deduction would be if we went with steel tanks rather than concrete storage tanks. And as it turns out, that was around $4 million, which is quite substantial. Now, steel tanks may take a little bit more maintenance over the long haul, but when you're talking about $4 million, you can do a lot of recoating for that amount of money. And we've got elevated storage tanks that are steel, and we're pretty used to making sure we get the inspections and keep those on their maintenance schedule. So we're not too worried about that. New high service pump station. We'll have 4 vertical turbine pumps, 125 horsepower each, new electrical, 250 kilowatt generator, and for standby on that high service pump station. And of course, new controls and instrumentation. And then also, of course, we'll have 24-inch transmission lines that connect all of this together. And like I say, really kind of reconfigure things so that they're a little bit more appropriately plumbed anyway, being that we don't have to send that treated water back down to the island. So. And I think that's it. We do have the engineer here tonight as well as our bond counsel in case there's any questions when we get to those points in the agenda.
Gotcha. Opening it up for questions and to staff.
I do have a couple. We've gotten some correspondence regarding some of the expense for this project, and don't get me wrong, like I fully support us having clean drinking water. What was the life expectancy for some of the original equipment, like the pumps there for the rainy well?
The current pumps are, like say, from the 60s, and so they're reaching the end of their useful life. And that was part of why this was part of the project plan to begin with, was that we recognize that those pumps, while we do rehab them and we put new bearings in and we've done maintenance on them over those years, they are really getting to the end of what their useful life expectancy is. And so that's part of this project.
Yeah, and I understand it's completely mission critical equipment for the city. Working with the state, I know a lot of times we have like a 10% leeway. If it's a 10-year life expectancy, we'll do it a year beforehand for some of the equipment that we finish. So, I know the state doesn't have, or the city doesn't have extra money to do like 20 years ahead of time or anything along those lines. So I like to see us being proactive rather than hitting issues when dealing something as important as drinking water.
Yeah, and of course, that's sorry to interrupt, but also to keep in mind that a big part of this DWSRF program is that loan forgiveness. That principal forgiveness really makes it make a lot of sense to do this now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And obviously, I have to ask, but how many of these contractors are union?
So, being that this is through the SRF program, I don't know which ones are union and which are non-union. However, the entire project is paid based on prevailing wages. And so that kind of evens the playing field for the contractors as whether or not they're union or not. The employees are getting paid quite well.
Okay.
So.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Vice Mayor Eke.
Director Moore, first of all, I want to say thanks for this. And I think it's important that you made this presentation because it brings forward a conversation or several conversations, just in case, our residents or some of us have forgotten that we've been talking about this for almost 2 years, 3 years. And sometimes we don't remember, the amounts that we discussed because it's not right in front of us. This helps tremendously. What I also appreciate is, highlighting the significance of doing this. I hope, I recall that maybe during one of your presentations, I worried about a situation such as the one that happened in Flint happening here. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, it won't happen. This is why we're doing this. Okay, so this is why we're doing this. Yes, it sounds expensive, but I think that if we want clean water, we want healthy water, we're going to have to be forward thinking. We have to, make sure we mitigate any problems that may arise, or at least, be, ready and get this done. My colleague here, Commissioner Skilitsky, asked part of the question that I wanted to ask, which is the life expectancy of these, structures. So he asked about the life expectancy of the previous ones, the ones that we're trying to get rid of. I'm asking what you anticipate as the potential life expectancy of these ones, do you think you're going to make these changes in 10 years or another set of changes in 15 years? Because the previous ones were what? 1960s and 1970s. So what are we looking at? To justify this amount of money, really,
Yes, so probably the earliest thing that we'll have to do maintenance on are those steel tanks. And so there's an epoxy coating that comes with those. They're done at the factory. That life expectancy is 15 to 20 years. Now that just means that you'll have to recoat it in that 15 or 20 years. That doesn't mean you're gonna, have to replace the whole thing.
Okay.
And so that'll be on a maintenance schedule like that, like our elevated tanks where we inspect those, I think every 5 years. We drain those down and we clean them up and we inspect and have a company that, knows what they're doing, take a look at that and make sure that we're keeping up with the maintenance on it. So the tanks themselves, as long as that maintenance is done on them, they will last a very long time. The pumps, again, we rehab our pumps quite often. The actual electrical motors, so the high service pumps and the Randy well are from the 60s, and so we're at 60 to 70 years that we got on those. And I would expect very similar out of these pumps before you had to actually fully replace them.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, you said maintenance. How frequently will maintenance take place? Or in general, how often are these maintained? Do you, do the maintenance?
So the pumps themselves, our well sites, the pumps are on a cycle where I think we're doing 1 or 2 every year, basically, cycling through those well sites. And so you're looking at probably 5 to 10 years for these pumps. And again, we probably cycle those so that we're not doing them all at once. We're doing a little bit every year. But that all depends on the inspections that we do on it too. So those you can. Because you don't want to do it 5 years early, and you can start to hear that there's some vibration or there's some issues that are coming up in those pumps, and so we can catch them before there's any real bad failures. And again, this setup is going to be more resilient in that it'll be better designed. We won't have that high service pump sitting on top of that tank. So that we can actually inspect the tank, but there's lead lag pumps, and so there's backup pumps essentially. So, yeah.
And I am also assuming that all of this, including the maintenance, would be in compliance with either state or federal expectations or requirements.
Correct. So we had to go through a fairly lengthy process of getting this permitted through the state, and they look at things like, do you have enough capacity, enough firm capacity in your wells? Do you have backup pumps? Do you have, are you avoiding any single point of failure situations, all of that sort of thing? And so, obviously we look at that anyway, but yes, we have the state there as a backstop as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Again, thanks for bringing this forward.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Commissioner Demerara.
Yes, mine are more in the water use rate increases. So we got 5 years, the first 3 years at 6% increase and the last 2 at a 3% increase. So I was kind of curious in this, is this set in stone? Is this something that would fluctuate if we needed to, like kind of looking at the city residents and what they would pay?
I'm going to tell you that cannot fluctuate in order to
Okay.
pay for the debt service. That has to be there.
Okay, and that's fine, but I just want to make sure it's not something that would increase surprisingly or, my other question in this, and it's not exactly related, but when we look at a typical household and then we might look at like industrial use, are water use rates based strictly on per gallon, or is there a certain amount that you hit and then you pay more? Like if you are a factory that uses a lot of water, do you actually have to pay more? Are you paying the same rate as a residence?
So I can speak to this a bit. there's a fee for demand and there's a fee for actual usage.
Mhm.
And so the demand fee is based on your meter size, and a lot of times the industrial users, they're gonna have a lot bigger meters. And so they're paying a higher flat fee, whether they use water or not.
Right.
They're using that fee. And that helps us out because we've got a lot of non-variable costs in the system. So we have to have the pipe in the ground, whether or not it gets used, we have to maintain that and all that. And so that meter fee helps us cover that cost. And it does hit those heavier users a little bit harder than it hits, say, your 5/8 inch meter customer. We have been, over the last several years, we've been increasing that fee as opposed to increasing the per gallon fee, simply because of that fact that we've got those costs regardless how much water is being used. I think we're looking at not favoring that. We're gonna look at the per gallon fee as well, rather than just
Right.
that
And,
fee.
and so the increase is strictly the per gallon use then? Is set out?
Not sure how that's set up.
I have that currently set up as an increase across all rates, but I did
Okay.
notice that we did have Mr. Sweats, our bond attorney, had a hand raised on the Zoom call. Any chance we can plug him in real quick?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe just to add a little bit of background to what Manager DeSen said. These are bonds that can only be paid by the rates and charges that are charged for the use of the water system. It's by law the kind of bonds they are. And so that's why the rates are very important here. And the city has a contractual obligation to the bondholders for the previous bonds, and then for the bondholders for these bonds as well, to annually review and set the rates at the amount that is needed to provide enough money to fully pay for all of the operational costs of the system, and then 100% of the debt service. And so the rates that you see are rates that the city's financial advisor has determined will be necessary to meet that coverage requirement, contractual requirement to set rates where you're going to be paying for at least 100% of the debt service. You cannot subsidize this with the general fund or pay for it with taxes. This is a utility system obligation, and that will be reviewed. The city has an obligation to review that annually, to make sure that that's happening. And so the rates that you're seeing are what the financial advisor assumes are going to be necessary at this time, but that will be reviewed every year. And there is no guarantee, as time goes by. It is possible that costs could go down and rates could be adjusted down, but I wouldn't want you to plan on that, because that just usually isn't the way things go in our world of inflation. And so I think the financial advisor, he's not with us tonight, but he was very comfortable with these numbers. But I just wanted you to know that this is something that needs to be reviewed annually. And obviously, you don't want to get into a situation where your rates are insufficient and the city could face a default on these bonds. So this will be a dynamic process. It's something the city's already doing on an annual basis, and that'll continue going forward, just to make sure rates are in a position, given where usage of the system may go up or down, or costs of the systems may go up or down. We just need to make sure every year that the rates are sufficient to cover these costs.
Okay, thank you.
Other members of the commission, questions?
I do have one more about you mentioned something about protecting some of the electrical equipment for the pumps in the facility itself. I know that Cadillac just suffered a lot of damage to their waste treatment facility as a result of some flooding. So is there any other efforts? What exactly is the extent that's being taken, considering some of the flooding issues the city has had the last couple decades? Is that more of an engineering question?
Well, I don't, are we talking about just this project or more, or broader?
Phase 2, yeah.
Okay,
phase
yeah,
2.
and so in phase two, we're raising up that electrical equipment. In the past, what has happened, like when we had the 2017 floods, we had to sandbag around those. We were able to protect them back then, but we had to, hurry up and sandbag around those and make sure that it was a little bit iffy at the time. So this will be a much more resilient system where it's actually above that 100-year floodplain. So, yeah.
Basically just elevating them is all, not like any kind of stop walls or anything along those lines, or?
No, being that it's on the island there, really, that's the only option you got is to raise it up. So,
Okay.
yep.
I had some questions then. I'll take my turn there. Let's see. So we've talked a lot about the necessity of the project. Again, I'm fully supportive of this. This is something that we've had ongoing since 2023, and these are necessary updates that we're doing here. Question for Director Moore: if we weren't doing these updates now, kind of like your assessment of what, like if, let's say we just weren't taking advantage of these funding opportunities, that if we weren't doing this work now, what kind of would you, like, would your vision, like, what would you see going on with our water system right now?
So we had a number of projects that were in the capital improvement plan that got pulled out because they were incorporated into this project. So we were doing pieces of this as we move through time in our capital improvement plan. Now, the big part of this where we're actually moving that storage, I don't know when that would have happened. I mean, that would have been a real challenge for us to do it, just to fund as you go sort of situation. And again, that over $5 million in principal forgiveness helps a lot with this, being able to do this kind of in one fell swoop like this. I do think that we probably would have had to bond at some point in the future, and hopefully we would have been able to do that in time before things started to fail. But this is a real opportunity to get it done, all at once.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
One of the questions, this is a more detailed question, I suppose, but the elevated tank that was being talked about there, I just noted that in the illustrations. Height of like that we're expecting, would something be comparable to like other water towers that we have around the city, or are we talking about something smaller scale?
So these tanks will be ground level tanks. I think they're about 20 feet tall, from ground to the top of the tank. The elevated tanks that I mentioned that we have, that we take care of now, I always forget how, I think they're over 100 feet. I don't know exactly how tall they are though.
Okay.
But yeah, again, those we have to inspect. We have Dixon come out and they'll inspect the insides and they'll let us know if we've got to weld some, spot repairs and things like that. And we've got corrosion control mechanisms on the tank, and we've got, there's another thing I didn't mention, that these new tanks will have baffling, so that we're getting better mixing of the water, better contact time for the chlorine, and that sort of thing too. So.
Gotcha. So yeah, the one that we're talking about, the new tank that we're talking about right now, or elevated tank, not nearly as tall as like, again, the other water towers that we have around town. It sounds like.
Yeah, they'll be ground storage
Okay.
next to the plant. They'll be kind of up on the hill next to the plant, but yeah, not actually elevated. So,
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm not crazy. Like I saw that in the like in your illustration, there was like
you-
kind of the image. I'm not just talking about the wrong thing here. If you go back through any of your slides.
Oh, yeah, we've got at the one end of the.
Oh yeah, it's not showing up there, but
It's not
okay,
showing up
got
there,
it.
but yeah,
You
we-
see what I was talking about there?
Yeah,
Like,
yep.
okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
that's out in the distribution
Are
system.
any of the other water towers then, are we expecting to transition away from those then? Though, okay.
No, those still serve a purpose in that they keep pressure on the system, and so that once you get it up in an elevated tank, then that offers fire suppression,
Okay.
capacity and that sort of thing. These ground storage tanks, it's a less expensive storage because it's on the ground, and you then pump that into those elevated storage tanks. But the elevated storage tanks are still an integral part of the system.
Okay.
Yeah.
From a development perspective, do you have are there any concerns switching vendors like again for this portion of the project? Are we talking about like, work is half done and a new vendor is coming in, and so they're picking up right where the last guy left off? Or is it the current vendor has completed their projects and now these are separate projects that it's, yeah, can you talk about that switch between the two companies that we're expecting there?
So the project is pretty well phased where there's a clear cut line between what this phase 2 contract is going to be and what the phase 1 contract is. We made some slight modifications to phase 1, so some of the electrical and that sort of thing in anticipation of this project. But I don't think there'll be any problems with, say contractor pointing the finger, saying, well, this is this guy's fault because they did it wrong way. That there's a clear cut line between, the responsibility on the site. So I think, there's some convenience to have the same contractor. RCL did bid this. They were not low bid. In fact, I think they were middle of the pack. So, they don't have to mobilize, they're already out there, that sort of thing, but, our, Fishbeck has worked with, Sorensen and Gross. In fact, I think they have several projects going with them right now and they don't have any concern, with that contractor. So I think we're in good shape.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. My other two questions are more on the financial side. Not that you can't speak to that or anything, Jason, but let's see. First question was if this need, like if we were to consider if we wanted to, is this time sensitive to this meeting is my primary question. Building off of that, my second question is the rate increases. I know we had, I believe, Manor Costerison is our financial assistant in this capacity. Not Manor.
This one's Bedzitsky.
What was it again?
Bedzitsky.
Bedzitsky.
We
Thank
work
you.
with them on both work phases, our water treatment plan phase, and then on this one, Maynard Costerison is doing some other financial work for us.
Okay. What I noted in the memos on the project was just associated with the rate increases. For very valid personal reasons, our financial director has had to have some personal time off, and the rate increases were recommended by outside advisors. My question was kind of if we decided we wanted to just give inside our in-house staff additional time to review, to consider any rate setting, is this time sensitive to this meeting? If we had
Internally, I know we wouldn't come up with anything any different. And if I can take you back to when we had passed our budget for this current year, I know Director Pavlowski had done just a light forward projection with numbers very similar. In fact, I think it might have even been a little bit higher based on her estimation. So the numbers coming back from Bedzitsky, I think check out at 6% for the next few years and then 3% for 2 years afterwards makes sense. In terms of time sensitivity, yes, this one is time sensitive, and so it does have to move forward today. As was mentioned by Mr. Sweats, though, obviously we will keep an eye on rates going forward here. If we see any kind of pressures that start to let off, we'd be very happy to make rate adjustments reflective of that information. But as he also said too, we just obviously know how inflation tends to work, and so it does tend to go up.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. And I think, again, everyone involved in this project has been doing a very good job, and I appreciate the thoroughness of the presentation and the information that was provided in our packet as well. My concern, I appreciate the feedback on that there. We have a lot of talented staff in-house also, and again, anytime we're adjusting rates, the fewer times we have to do that, the more consistency that we can provide to our residents. I think that's appreciated throughout any kind of change. So that was where, again, just wanted to bring that up as an item of consideration, as conversation. So I appreciate also, again, you affirming the time-sensitive nature of this, of getting this process moving. Again, we have to move this evening. So thank you, Manager Sense.
Thank you.
Commissioner Alsager.
I just have a question for Manager DeSense. Since we're looking at items 10, 11, and 12, are we going to do them as 3 separate motions?
3 separate motions, if you would, please. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. other members of the commission with any other questions at this time? Otherwise, I'm going to turn my eyes to Commissioner Al Sager, who I think has some.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about item number 10.
Mhm.
So we want to consider to authorize the issuance of up to $30 million of revenue bonds for the water plant improvement project.
And if I can get that with the adoption of the resolution as presented too, that would be awesome.
What I have in my notes is a motion to adopt the resolution as presented.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion is sufficient. Okay.
Second.
I'll second. Okay.
Okay, motion was made by Commissioner Al Sager and seconded by Commissioner Skalitsky to pass the resolution as presented. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. That brings us to item number 11. Manager Sense, if you just want to highlight any differences, if you'd read the item and highlight any differences.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one was for the issuance of the bonds. This one will be for the contract awards for the water treatment pump and storage improvement project to Sorensen Gross for $25,456,000. Rainy Well lateral rehabilitation installation project to Reynolds Construction for $2,249,970. And the 2027 galvanized service line replacements to the Isabella Corporation for $104,550. Authorize execution of the contract documents for each project, approve any necessary budget amendments, and adopt the attached resolution formalizing these awards. Just to highlight a few things on this. So phase one, I had down as we had done phase one with an estimated total cost of about $13 million with $2.3 million in principal forgiveness. While this one will reach to about $32 million in total, as Director Moore had said, we have $6.4 million in principal forgiveness that is being provided by the state.
Any questions on item number 11? Okay. Is there a motion that member would like to put forward?
Make a motion to approve the following contract awards for the DWSRF Phase 2 water system improvements, pump and storage to Project Sorensen Gross for $25.456 million. Rainy Well lateral rehabilitation installation to the Reynolds Construction for $2.249 $970, and the 2027 the galvanized service line replacement to the Isabella Corporation for $104,550.
I'll second that.
We also need to authorize the director to execute contract documents for the receipt for the required bonds, insurance, and other documentation, and approve necessary budget amendments to the water fund.
I'll second that also.
Okay. So there was a motion made by Commissioner Skalitsky and seconded by Vice Mayor Eke to approve the proposed contracts, authorize the execution of documents and budget amendments, and I believe adopt the attached resolution formalizing these awards?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. And item number 12, once again, turning to Manager Dissents, if you would
Absolutely.
keep us up to date.
So this, actually, the three different projects all summed into one is phase two. It's going to require additional construction engineering services to ensure quality control, oversight, state-required documentation, tracking, and occasional advocacy and consulting. The city has worked with Fishbeck Engineering during phase one of the water treatment rehabilitation project. They're also the firm that designed the needed improvements. Staff recommends the approval of a contract with Fishbeck Engineering in a not-to-exceed amount of $1,576,000 for these services.
Okay.
Okay. Questions? Discussion? Is there a motion? Commissioner Al Sager.
Okay, I move that we approve the professional services contract with Fishbeck for Phase 2 construction engineering services in the not-to-exceed amount of $1,576,000, along with an amendment to the Water Department budget as necessary to cover these services during the construction period beginning later this year.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Commissioner Alasager and seconded by Commissioner Demarath to approve the contract with Fishbeck for Phase 2 construction and additional items as listed. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us to item number 13 this evening. Consider construction options for City Hall Upper South Walkway. And I believe staff would probably like to fill us in a bit on what's going on with that.
Absolutely. So on the south side of this building here, there's a walkway that allows people to access second floor of City Hall to Broadway Street. The walkway has corroded since its initial installation roughly 20 years ago due to it being made of steel and the use of salt on the walkway during the winter. We have taken a look at 3 different options for this issue. There's the complete replacement of the walkway, which will cost an estimated between $94,000 and $125,000, and it's assumed that the replacement will last another 20 years, similar to the one that's currently out there. We've looked at the potential for rehabilitation of the existing walkway, which would cost between $40,000 and $45,000. This would only last about 10 years. And then there's also the concept of the removal of the walkway and constructing an entrance at grade. This would be budget neutral for the most part because we would have some work that would be removed from the city wall job, and then with the removal of that, it would offset the cost for the removal of the walkway and then just touching up and making City Hall look nice again where its removal was. We're still looking at, and we do have our building official here, Corey Donnell. Last I know, I think we're still trying to get quotes for a new door, though we don't anticipate that to be exorbitant by any means.
We did receive that quote today. That quote came at $25,000. So we do have that quote. That means we're infilling the opening for that door.
No, you're good. Thank you. Yeah, there'll be people at home who are asking, well, what was happening at that point, so.
Yep. So the $25,000 bid that we received would be for infilling the opening from the removal of that door and then creating the new opening on the south side of the building that would allow for the entry straight from Broadway here.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah. Starting off questions, Vice Mayor Eke.
So, what exactly would be the total of the project, including the cost for the door?
So for the option of removing the third option, the total price of of that project would be about $35,000.
Okay. And that would still be less costly than the 2 others presented. Than
Correct.
the rehabilitation and the complete replacement.
Correct, and it would also eliminate some of the further headaches associated with the maintenance of an elevated steel walkway.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other members of the commission.
Is this going to create any new green space?
No, that area would be primarily concrete for that entryway.
And my understanding from Manager Descent's presentation is that placing a new door there would give an additional access to City Hall.
That could be something that we could consider in future plans, you know, with the approval of you guys on the commission. Phase 1 would just kind of be eliminating the corrosive elements of that door. But yes, certainly in the future, a reconfiguration of that office space and possibly a public entry point right from Broadway could be an option, yes.
Okay.
That would probably be in our 27 to 32 capital improvement plan.
Other members, yeah.
So this new door, if we were to remove that, I'm thinking about an issue of accommodation. How accessible would that be?
It would be pretty much exactly the same as what we currently have. You'd just be going, 10 feet, and instead of going to the right, you'd go 10 feet to the left, so.
Okay. So it would be used primarily by staff? Is that what I'm hearing?
Originally, it would be an employee entry point only.
Okay. Okay. And potential fire egress too.
Correct.
Okay.
Other members of the commission with questions? So, I just wanted to jump in on, let's see. No, it's not really a question so much as moving into discussion, I think, actually. So thank you. Yeah, so there are the three options presented to the members of the commission at this time for how to proceed on this. One of them, or again, either replace the walkway, rehabilitate the current walkway, or move, rather than just remove the walkway entirely and create the entrances on the south side of the building at grade. Point I'd like to of discussion as we're considering where we'd like to go. Personally, I think, we have a lot of budget's a big topic right now. We are having a lot of costs come up. We just approved bonds. Working with it, I think I would be comfortable with option 3 of the removal of the walkway entirely. One thing as I was considering this is the acknowledgement that this is a historic building. So that was a concern that I wanted to explore a bit there. The historic Borden building was redeveloped partly in conjunction with the city's Historic District Commission. I wish they unfortunately are a little inactive at the moment and interested in getting them back up and running. I think their input would be valuable here, but reviewing historic photos of the building that we have on display here in City Hall, actually I noted that, again, the walkway wasn't included as part of the original building. It actually appears that there originally were 2 doors flanking either side of that portion of the building that would allow access out onto Broadway. So for myself, I think option 3 would probably be where I lean, but I also want to hear from other members of the commission if there's any discussion or concerns.
I agree with you.
Thank you, Commissioner Demorano. Yeah, Vice Mayor Eke.
Yeah, I will support option 3 because it eliminates the recurring maintenance costs and it just simply resolves the problem. And then the potential of, future, expanding it or opening it to, make it possible for people to enter the City Hall from Broadway.
Make sure.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Yes, the potential for expanding the use of that space beyond the use of the door, beyond, the limited staff usage and, providing another entry, to City Hall in the future.
Okay. Is there a motion from members of the commission at this time or other discussion?
Do we need a motion?
We would need a motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I move that we support option 3 of the recommended options at the cost of, what is it, he said?
I don't think you need to get.
Okay.
Yeah, for this motion, it's not as stringent as bonding is. So this one you can.
I move that we support option 3 as recommended.
Second. Motion made to support option 3 by Vice Mayor Eke and seconded by Commissioner Rollins. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is item number 14, a discussion to add disclosure of conflicts of interest / opportunity for recusal as a standing item to the city commission agenda. And this item was introduced by Commissioner Perschbacher. So at this time, I would like to offer her the floor to be able to talk about this item further.
There are a lot of municipalities who have adopted some type of disclosure wording at the beginning of the agenda. It just, it really opens up the commission to be transparent. In a small community, there are many things that we are part of or have maybe been part of in the past, and we really should be willing to say, I want to recuse myself, or I want you all to know that this is something that is of interest of mine, or this is something I'm involved in. I think that that is very important. The language that I proposed was that commissioners are asked to disclose any potential conflicts of interest or matters in which they may have personal, financial, or professional interest that could result in a personal gain or loss related to the items on the agenda. Any commissioner identifying such a conflict may state the nature of the conflict and recuse themselves from discussion and voting on the relevant agenda items. Commissioners may also choose to recuse themselves where participation could create the appearance of impropriety or compromise public confidence in the commission's decision-making. I think that this is very important because it is, it wasn't that long ago, I was on vacation, I came back, and then suddenly you asked if anybody wanted to dissent. Well, when you do that, there's not a reason given. When you say I dissent or I vote no or whatever, there's no reason given. So then the community, the residents that we have been elected by have to wonder what made you not want to vote for that, or what made you pull your vote out of that. And I think having this disclosure at the beginning of a commission meeting would give us more transparency, so the people that have voted for us, that have placed us here, will understand where we stand on many topics.
Is
Vice Mayor?
I would support this motion. I have wondered why we don't have a statement, or at least an opportunity, to indicate where we may have conflict of interest or disclose such matters. Most organizations, it's not just simply municipalities, at least most of the organizations I've worked with have that. Even, staff meetings where, you may be participating in discussions about something that may affect you or somebody I think it is important to indicate that there is conflict of interest. I agree that it is important for us to do that for the purposes of transparency, but not only for that, but also to maintain the integrity of the process. I do think that it helps to, sustain public trust in us. And sometimes it's not because one may benefit from, the situation, but it is because one may have other affiliations, so, that may compromise their position. I would, however, like to suggest a minor language tweak, maybe not compromise public confidence, but undermine public confidence. That's just one word, that it might undermine public confidence in the commission's decision-making. I'm thinking for me, that is what it is. I'm just simply suggesting that.
Commissioner Alsager?
I'm supportive of this, especially if we find a briefer way to put it in the agenda.
Yes. Other members of the commission? talking about it, had some thoughts on it. Yeah, I think that this would be a perfectly fine thing to potentially add to the agenda as a standing item. Talking about it, if we do decide, if there is an interest in pursuing this and a motion is made, that motion would likely need to be to direct staff to draft a resolution. Per the city charter, we can't, to update our agenda and the standing items, we can't, or we are required to pass a resolution to do so. I believe the last one that occurred was when we added our tribal land acknowledgement, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, working with this also then, as far as like language, I would agree. I think Commissioner Perschbacher, in their statement, lays out a great reason for interest in doing this, and the idea and concepts behind it. Largely, I think it stems from our ethics policy, which is in the city charter and ordinances currently. So it's section 30.16 is our ethics policy, which lays out the specific guidelines and processes for this. And I think one thing with it, let's see, commissioners may also choose to recuse themselves where participation could create the appearance of impropriety. That is something that commissioners can bring and request permission from the rest of the commission for. But that would actually, if there's not a defined, like a defined conflict of interest per the actual ethics policy, in that case, like if it's just like, I don't actually have personal gain from an item, but it's the appearance of it I'm just not comfortable with, that would actually need to be a request made to the rest of the commission. We would need to vote on if they would be allowed to recuse themselves in that case, is my understanding of the ethics policy. Let's see.
Well, I understand that, but as soon as you say, I'm going to recuse myself, you could, because I really don't understand this, you could also just vote no.
They're two different things.
Yeah.
Well,
But if you don't have a reason, you just like, I'm not sure there's enough information, then you put that in discussion.
well,
So I'm not clear what you're saying.
yeah, so talking about, let me find the right section right now.
May I speak?
Certainly, Vice Mayor.
I do think that self-recusal or a recusal is different from, you might vote no because you don't like whatever that is. But recusal says you are not going to engage either, in the conversation or even voting because there is a conflict for you. You're removing yourself in terms of participation, in the process. That's my understanding, because it is a conflict for you. And I do think that there's a difference between conflict of interest and simply saying I'm voting no against a position or some conversation because I don't like what is happening, because I don't agree with what is happening. A conflict of interest has something to do with the personal gain, something where it affects you personally or affects somebody that directly or indirectly affects you. And I think at that moment, therefore, it is important to recuse yourself or to indicate that you have a conflict in this particular decision making.
Yeah, very much so. So to the point I was like on that topic about, you would be looking at the second page of the ethics policy. So it'd be about 3 or 4 from the bottom. So the heading B, if regardless of compliance with this section, an official strongly believes that due to a close family or friendship relationship, he or she would find it very difficult to objectively participate in a matter before the body on which the official serves, the official may ask remaining members of the body in which the official serves to excuse the official from his or her duty to otherwise participate in the discussion and action on that matter. The remainder of the body, by a majority vote, may excuse the official's participation. An official shall have no duty to request the body to excuse the official's participation. The body shall have no duty to grant such a request, and no other person shall have any right under this division. Essentially, my understanding of it is that unless there is a conflict of interest as defined by our ethics policy, we are required to, we cannot abstain from a vote. We cannot not cast a vote. We have to say either yay or nay to a decision. So we can certainly vote in dissent. I think to your point, I think it's more the concerns about abstaining from a vote, I think might be more of your concern versus voting in dissent, which again, dissent is a perfectly normal thing.
But a dissent is, my understanding is just a no vote.
Yeah, no, that's,
So I don't understand, like, what I had said before is that you had brought up, you had said, all those in favor say yay, all those in, opposed say nay, all those dissent, and then somebody dissented, and I was like, well,
Oh.
then why don't you just vote no?
I
It was the
apologize. I'm
first
not-
meeting of June.
I don't recall. Oh, I would have to go and review the minutes and the footage of it, to be honest. Yeah. I would need to review that to recall the specific
Okay.
details of that.
But I think that if we have something at the beginning of the meeting where all of us can say whether or not we would wish to recuse ourselves from one item or another based on, you know, something that has happened, something that is like a friendship, a partnership, a financial tie, whatever, something that we would gain fully from a yes or no vote.
As defined by the
Yes.
city's ethics policy, which,
Yes.
yeah, has pretty clear
Yeah,
definitions on all
but
of
I
it.
think that if we have something in the agenda saying, at this point, before we get into the agenda, is there anyone that would like to recuse themselves from anything based on whatever their explanation is?
Gotcha.
Excuse me.
I'm gonna go Commissioner Alice Agers in the amp first, and then I'm gonna check back over there for.
Well, I know the item from the consent agenda that I asked to be moved about, just a minute, I better get my wording right, about the Broadway Theater. I know Amy used to be on the board for it, so if, you know, she's not on the board any longer, but
Yeah.
if she was, she could maybe recuse herself from that discussion.
But I don't know necessarily if she would have the ability to do that, because again, she's no longer there. Definitely, like I understand where that desire might come from, but I don't know. I would ask, kind of check with the ethics policy if that would be something that's with our ethics policy. It's for like when that item comes, prior to the item coming up, checking with city staff or the city manager and city attorney. And then from there, again, if you're not actively on that board, I don't know.
No, I'm saying if she was still on the board.
Oh, she was still on the
If
board,
she
yeah.
was.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
presents,
that was
yeah.
that was
Oh,
my
okay.
point.
Gotcha. I thought you were saying currently, and I'm like,
Mhm.
currently, I don't think she has any benefit from that then. But yeah, I'm comfortable including a section, just pursuant to the city's ethics policy. Are there any members of the commission who'd like to identify items from which they would recuse themselves, something akin to that? And the language, though, that again, Commissioner Perschbacher had provided would certainly go a long way in aiding staff in drafting the needed resolution to make the amendment. But again, opening back up, I know Vice Mayor wanted to speak, checking in with other members on the other side, though. First, I do apologize. I've dominated a lot. Got to give someone else also. Commissioner Splitsky or Rollins?
Yes, I would like to chime in if I could have a second. I'm kind of inclined to agree with the Vice Mayor regarding there's a difference between a conflict and a conflict of interest. I understand exactly what is being hinted at regarding the June minutes and what votes were being considered. I feel like a lot of this is reactive rather than proactive, you know, and I understand also,
But this was sent to the mayor way before June.
I believe there was, like at the example that Commissioner Alsager made about potential conflict of interest with Commissioner Perschbacher being a former board member. You know, I am currently a concert committee chair for the Broadway Theater. You know, for me personally, I feel like there would be a reason for me to recuse myself from the vote for the club license for the theater. But But again, I feel like some of the actions that are being taken by the commission are reactive and are impeding on some of the proactive measures that others are trying to take in regards to making real change for the city and things that have been supported by numerous members of the community. I am all for transparency and all things government. I advocated for that in 22 when we were trying to get more disclosure regarding contributions for donations for campaign. Yeah. Transparency is good, but so is good work for the community. And I would feel derelict if I did not address some personality conflicts that have impeded with business for the commission on conducting the work that needs to get done. So, I mean, if we're going to be transparent in things, then I think that be transparent in all things. I recuse myself because I could not in full faith agree with giving $90,000 for an acre of land for entities that I believe were going to benefit from a project. But I could also not vote to interrupt work that the city had been doing to complete a project that would be very influential for Michigan and Mount Pleasant. I guess an apology is owed from myself if I was in violation of the ethics policy for abstaining from that vote. I guess that's all.
Commissioner Rollins, I think you had something that, did you want to speak?
Well, I just wanted to say I agree with Vice Mayor Eke. Words do matter. And the word undermine is essentially what was needed to amend this ordinance, this policy.
Gotcha. Vice Mayor, I'll give it back to you at this point.
I think I'm lost. In short, I do think that, we probably just need the city's code of ethics or policy already addresses some of what Commissioner Baker is trying to, I hope, is trying to address. So it might just simply necessitate having just a sentence somewhere at the top of the agenda or as a note somewhere on the agenda to simply indicate you actually almost provided the sentence to indicate that if any commissioner here has, a conflict of interest, or any commissioner here has, the right to recuse themselves from an item, which may present a conflict of interest, for them and consequently undermine, public trust. Just make it simple. This is already covered here. The issue of conflicts for me is covered by this particular item 2, which deals with disclosure. So there is no need for us to be redundant. I do think that creating another resolution or another policy becomes redundant when we already have something. What we need really, I'm hearing, is a way of activating or enforcing a policy that we already have, or at least foregrounding it so that when we're making decisions, particular decisions about issues that present conflict for us, this information, ethical policy is right before our eyes. I'm reading it as a reminder that we need a reminder that this exists and that we ought to do this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I'm approaching this. I don't see a need for drafting a new one because we already have something in existence.
We have the current policy. Oh, I'm gonna just let the commissioner speak who hadn't had a chance, and then I'll.
It's fine.
Okay. Attorney Homier, if you want.
Yeah, so,
Attorney Homier, for the moment, could we have you step up to the dais to just avoid the feedback and make sure that you're heard for the record?
So at least as I read the policy, it's really just to provide space on the agenda to make the required disclosure that the ethics policy requires in the first place. The only reason why a resolution is necessary, it's to dictate that order of things on the agenda, not necessarily the content of the disclosure that's already dictated. So really, it's just modification to the form of the agenda. Like Commissioner Eke said, kind of a reminder, a space, if you will, for commissioners to make the required disclosures pursuant to the ethics policy. So from that aspect, I'm not troubled by space on the agenda for that purpose, because the ethics policy already requires those disclosures and abstention where you have conflicts of interest. That makes sense.
Yes.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Demaroff?
Yeah, that's, I think a light touch, like you said, is a reminder. I would agree with Vice Mayor Eke on that. If it's a place where we can voice something, I think that's important. But I do think that the ethic policy has kind of it down. So if it's a light touch and it's a reminder or a place where we can put our conflict of interest out there, I think that's a good idea.
With the feedback from Commissioner Perschbacher and coupled with Commissioner Skolitsky there on that topic about any abstentions. I think it was a combination of things that led to that there. Wasn't something that had come up previously. I think I had seen that Commissioner Skolitsky hadn't voted on the item yet, and that's when I put that forward. And I would put that down to, just kind of, slip of the mind and everything there of like, thought that that intruded at that point was like, oh, well, is there an abstention then? Yeah, I think especially as, as you are rightly putting, and has been discussed, we're putting this front and forward. Members of the commission, it's our duty to vote on items. I think that vote either in the positive or the negative on items, except when outlined by the ethics policy. And I also wouldn't fault Commissioner Skolitsky in any way for that vote there, or rather that abstention. Again, it's something that, I think the last time I had a formal review of the ethics policy before this discussion was 4 years ago when I was being onboarded with the city commission. I think that it's a good thing that, again, your proposal of putting this in here, putting it into our meetings. I have no problem with that. And again, I wouldn't, for an error that's occurred that we can then discuss and identify and move forward from, I wouldn't have any problem with. I have no issues or faults with other members of the commission, but.
I would like to say that the email went out I sent it out to all of the city commissioners on May 9th with this discussion. So this is not because I'm not bringing this forward because of what had happened. I was just surprised that had happened. And then I was like, okay, well, what about this that I had put forward to all of you? And nobody had brought it forward. So I think that abstaining from a vote is one thing, but you don't have to explain it. When you recuse yourself because there might be an issue of interest, I think that that's important. Abstaining from a vote is not, you do not have to explain why you abstain.
I don't
If you're
have the
going to
legal
abstain, you might as well just vote no.
But no, I mean, an abstention, it can affect like a great number of things. It's not casting a vote. The absence of vote, like it can certainly affect the outcome of the vote, but there very much is a difference between an abstention and a no vote. Again, voting either yes or no is is generally required of us, being put into this position and expected of us, just by and large. Abstentions and not voicing is just the absence of an opinion or the sharing of a vote or on a motion. So there is a difference there, and I would challenge that. I don't have anything
But it's
in
not
front of me.
transparent.
But I don't think an abstention is allowed except under the ethics policy, under specific items for which someone would need to disclose why they're abstaining in that situation. I don't believe you can abstain without cause from the ethics policy. City Attorney Homer will give us some additional information on that, I'm certain, but in any case, I do apologize. That's a conversation all unto itself and everything. And perhaps we can just we'll get some follow-up on the city attorney from that at a later time. Not necessary to the discussion at hand of to include or not to include this on the agenda. Commissioner Birschbacher, it's again, you brought this forward as an interested item. Did you have a spot on the agenda that you were thinking of for this, that we could direct staff to draft a resolution for that actual portion?
If we were going to add it to the agenda, it would probably have to be before the additions and deletions.
Yeah, I think
that's the most logical place.
Other members of the commission, any feedback on the placement of it?
I'm okay with it there. It's just simply, I think it's like, it's a note, really. So, where is it prominent? We can place it in there, or place it right at the very top if you want.
Yeah. Commissioner Alsay?
Another idea could be right after the roll call.
That's true. Or even, here is a box here at the bottom. You create the second.
But I think it
bullet.
should be more than a note. I think it should be, at this time, is there any recusals from any items on the agenda?
Okay.
I think it's just very clear.
Short sentence.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. Putting it in there so that whoever is chairing the meeting at that point asks that question. The mayor who chairs the meetings asks that question.
I'd be good with that.
But I don't think that it should be a lengthy statement. It's
No.
just a very short statement. Ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a motion to direct staff to draft?
I move that we direct staff to create a resolution to include a statement of recusal.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Perschbacher, seconded by Vice Mayor Eke to include, to direct staff to draft a resolution for the inclusion of a disclosure or a disclosure of conflicts and opportunity for recusal on the standing agenda. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. All right, item number 15, consider survey of city boards and commissioners from Appointments Committee. Appointments Committee has discussed the possibility of doing a survey to members of appointed boards, commissions, elected bodies. I imagine it would be fun, good for us to take this as well. I do apologize that I did not have that into the agenda draft on time in order to get that, but I will make sure that staff have that included in receipt of petitions and communications for review on next meeting's agenda. But yeah, discussing it, the idea would be to help with the retention and attraction of qualified and interested individuals within the community to serve on different boards and commissions. It's pretty straightforward. It asks, boards, how often your board meets, how long you've served in the role, things of that nature. If you've had any prior experience or training, have you received any training during your time with the city relevant to your experience, things of that nature. But yeah, in consultation with city staff, it would be best to have direction from the city commission to proceed with this through whatever mechanism staff determine to be best. I've never implemented an actual survey like SurveyMonkey or Microsoft Teams, anything like that. I've not done that myself, but I think it would be a valuable insight for the appointments committee and for our city government at large to, again, just have a better idea of how best can we serve the people who are serving. Questions, comments?
Good idea.
Okay.
Although you could shorten some of your questions,
Okay.
but it's a good idea. I think it's helpful,
Okay.
I don't think your questions are too long. I think that people who are involved in boards understand this. Maybe the people who are not don't, but these people are already pretty dedicated if they're on board. So I think they'd be totally willing to give you all this information. So,
Okay. Okay, not seeing any other questions or concerns. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion at this time to direct staff to prepare and implement a survey of city or appointed appointed and elected members of city commissions and boards, utilizing the questions provided by the appointments committee.
Seconded.
Motion was made by myself as mayor, seconded by Commissioner Skolitsky. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us to item number 16, reflection on Sister City Okaya delegation exchange. So we wanted to give an opportunity for members of the commission who are able to participate in the exchange with our sister city. Anytime to just make any kind of comments or offer any feedback or reflections on the exchange itself, or the experience. Look.
people.
Gotcha. Commissioner Skolitsky?
I had an absolute blast with them. It's not very often that you get to dance in the middle of Camille's with representatives from Japan. Yes, we danced. Right before we said goodnight, when everybody was getting ready to leave.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because music crosses all boundaries and we had a great time and ska. Yeah, it was a really enjoyable time getting to show them the parks and some of the things that make up Mount Pleasant and what's important to us, to share some of the challenges that we have compared to some of the challenges that they have. I mean, we might have bear problems, but they're very, very, very different bear problems. We might have housing issues, but they are very, very, very different housing issues. So getting to learn the types of challenges and what set up those challenges for their communities and for their officials to have to deal with them. It gives us, I think, some insight as to how we are doing our own jobs as representatives of the city and where we are steering the community.
Other members of the commission? No. Commissioner Al Sager?
Well, like Commissioner Skilitsky, I had a good time with the things I got to attend. I was at the formal welcoming ceremony. And then it seemed like everything else I did was go to all the meals. Yeah, I didn't go to the shooting range or anything like that.
Okay.
It was good to see the friends that I made last year in Japan and to show them our city. One of the things, the highlights was to go to the Zibwing at the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, the cultural center, and listen to, as we watched a video of their understanding of the creation of Earth that was actually voiced over in Japanese by one of the interpreters. I think they had done it like 20 years ago or something, but they had voiced over, and the interpreter was there as well. And that was, they were so intrigued by that and so excited. And it doesn't matter what language you hear that story in, you know exactly what it is saying. And it is very, it's a wonderful message. But I enjoyed seeing my friends again.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Demiroff, Commissioner, Vice Mayor Eke?
You go.
I had a great time. It was a wonderful experience. I didn't get to participate as much as I would have liked, but it was awesome nevertheless.
Vice Mayor?
For me, it was, it was wonderful. Unlike Commissioner Parshbacker, it was really wonderful to, meet them again because we had been with them in, 2025. And, and it's what for me was fascinating was watching their reactions to when they visited the Okaya Dori, right? So yeah, it was like, and, taking pictures. And because we talked about that when we were there briefly, but having them see it and respond to it. And then I took them on a tour of the campus because also I had talked about CMU, hopefully developing some kind of connections with CMU while we were there in 2025. And so we went to CMU. We didn't get to see, a lot of the places that we wanted to see, but we saw enough. And it was really interesting to watch their response when we got to the president's office. The president wasn't there. And so as they were leaving, the president's staff said, oh yeah, you can actually go into the president's office. So they go into the president's office and they took pictures and it was so wonderful, right? And then we ended up at the UC and we went into the bookstore and they wanted to spend time at the bookstore, but we didn't have enough time. We went to the library. It was just simply, noticing the reaction, to these spaces. And it made me think about, what happens to us when we encounter cultures that we have heard of, but now we are in these particular spaces and it's like, oh my God, look at this. This is wonderful. The connections we talked about, all these, connections that we had, that we have. I think perhaps for that tour, the highlight was when we went to the health professions building and the assistant dean was talking to them about the nursing program and the health professions program and how many years they had to go through in order to get that particular degree. I swear it was like, oh my God, yeah. So there is this cultural shift, and in terms of the response to what they were experiencing. I do know that they said, they indicated that they really appreciated the tour to campus because I was worried that we didn't have enough time and we couldn't do all of campus. But they sent message back to say that they really appreciated it and they were happy about that. And of course, sharing other things that we're doing in the city. I'm not gonna bring that up extensively, like the chicken ordinance. It's like, what? What are you doing? Okay, it's more like a surprise. Excuse me, what are you doing? Mandating now people are gonna raise chickens or something like that. But yeah, again, in that case, it was more like, a municipality's position on certain things and our position and how those seem to be, slightly different. But I am happy that, we had this opportunity to meet and to share our community with them, Yeah.
Director DeSense, you had the opportunity to spend a good amount of time with our friends from Okaya. If you wanted to share any takeaways.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Just say it was absolutely my honor to have worked on this exchange this year. This was a fantastic experience, I think, had by all, as you guys had shared. Just for the folks at home, I know folks probably don't know, but we had 4 total individuals who were able to come over and make the trip overseas, and that was Mr. Tadashi Fujisawa, Mr. Hiroshi Yoshida, Mr. Yasutaka Imai, and Mrs. Itsuki Ida. So, certainly my thanks to them for making the long trip here. Having made that trip, I know that is not an easy one. And I will tell you, those guys, unbelievable, because they had gotten in late from their flight. They were originally supposed to touch down here in Michigan just before midnight. They were delayed by a few hours. By the time they got to their hotel, I was told that they were able to take about a 2-hour nap before they showed up promptly and in suits and everything here at City Hall for a signing ceremony. So, I mean, that's incredible. I couldn't do it myself. I'll just say that. So it's incredible that they were able to do that. And then they went all day with us. We showed them around City Hall here. It was really fun to discuss some of the differences and just kind of City Hall structure, how we do some things. So that was just a really fun experience. Taking them over to Okayadori, over Nelson Park, that was very fun. Everyone had a good time there. We talked about some of the trees that were planted and the importance of that. So it's just overall a really, really great experience. We got to have some fun while they were here. And so looking forward to continuing the Sister City exchange program for many years to come with them.
Thank you. Yeah, for myself, again, getting to be able to participate in this manner, I was I was unfortunately unable to participate in the exchange of our delegation in Mount Pleasant, attending them in Okaya for the 60th anniversary celebration. But I was very pleased to be able to participate in the celebration of that anniversary with them here with their delegation. Their mayor also was not able to attend here. I sent them back with some bags of coffee from the local area, locally roasted, so that he could share in our hospitality along with his fellow city leaders. Again, a second time this evening, I'll need to apologize to members of the commission and to those watching at home or following along. I have worked to prepare a packet with summary information from the exchange for members of the community to be able to review, see again, the setup of City Hall, the items that were exchanged. And I have copies of the speeches that were prepared in advance. If there's anything missing in here, again, I will make sure that this is included as part of receipt and petitions and communications as next meeting that members of the public would be able to review. And if members of the commission are looking through this packet, treat this as a rough draft, then if you have anything you would like to have included as part of it from the time here, maybe some even like a conversation or a takeaway or something, we could include that. The international relations, so our connection with the sister city is also maintained in large part thanks to our friends with the Mount Pleasant International Relations Committee. The city of Mount Pleasant, our city commission has 2 seats to that board, committee, but it is also largely run by volunteers from the community who see the value and of that exchange between cultures. When we know more about each other, we are able to overcome more challenges and reduce friction and tensions, not just between ourselves, but others that we have differences, cultural, interpersonal, whatever it may be. My takeaway is, we've worked really hard on maintaining this relationship across commissions, staff, oceans, mountains for 60 years. What can that teach us about how we interact with each other, with the people sitting right next to us here at home? So again, I am excited. There's more students coming from Okaya as part of this Sister City Exchange. They'll be here later this month. I'm hoping to be able to greet them here at City Hall. And also, I am looking forward to having a completed packet of information about the 60th exchange available for the city to review, or members of community to review in the receipts of petitions and communications at our next meeting. And I can conclude discussion on this item, and that brings us all the way back to item number 7. We are looking at consider Broadway Theater request for club license. Manager DeSense, if you want to give us some background on this.
Absolutely. So representatives from the Broadway Theater are pursuing a liquor license known as a club license. This is an alcohol sales license that allows the venue to sell alcoholic beverages to club members of the appropriate age. Those members would be required to pay an annual dues amount and are able to elect members of the board of directors. In order to pursue this license, the city of Mount Pleasant must approve the attached form in your packet. This form then would be provided to the state in its consideration of the license request.
Okay. Questions, discussions from members of the commission at this time? Commissioner Alsager.
Well, I've read the information in the packet and I can see why they want to change their current practice, that sometimes they don't get the license in time to sell alcohol at an adult event. I understand that. And I think I understand better what a club license is, that you become a club member by paying some form of the dues. But why would they go for that instead of just, do we not have another liquor license available for them?
I hate to say that the inventory is kept at the state, and I don't necessarily know if that was part of the decision-making process. I did not ask.
Okay.
So it could be that could be the reason why that as far as available licenses, maybe this was the only one that's available to them.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to support it. I just wondered, what were the ins and outs of it?
Vice Mayor?
Commissioner Skalitsky is on the board of.
Not on the board. I am the concert committee chair for the theater. I can't confirm that there are no other available licenses for the theater.
Or you cannot.
I can confirm. This is the option. We've been using the special use permits problematically because it is inconsistent, which creates an inconsistent event and experience for the attendees, which is difficult to maintain a consistent attendance. This is Broadway Theater is a gem for the community, having a community-owned space like that where the kids can come on and perform. The adults can put on their own productions. We have some local high school Sacred Heart students that are going to be opening up this Saturday. So it's great to be able to provide this atmosphere and location for them to be able to spread their wings really while they're doing the things. But the theater needs to be successful in order to be able to provide that space for them. So having the ability to have an increased revenue stream will be extremely helpful to ensure its success in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Other members of the commission, questions, discussion? Is there a motion that would like to be considered at this time?
I will recuse myself from the vote because I am the concert chair and I have personal gain from the approval of the resolution if it is passed.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sklitsky. Not while it's fresh in our mind, I do apologize to do this, but as we're working on reminding ourselves of our ethics policy does state that for the recusal on a motion or a vote, that you step off of the dais at this time. And you'd be welcome back as soon as the vote is over. Okay. Is there a motion to consider at this time or any other discussion?
I move that we grant Broadway Theater request for club license.
I second.
Motion was made by the Vice Mayor Eke, seconded by Commissioner Demarath. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Commissioner Sklitsky, please return to the dais. Okay. This time we'll move into announcements on city-related issues and new business. Members of the commission, this is our opportunity to talk, bring forward any additional items. Commissioner Alsager?
With the hot weather that we're having, I'm fortunate that I'm being able to teach swim lessons 4 days a week and stay cool.
Thank you. Commissioner Demarath?
Okay, so I have recently been asked by some residents about the city's policy of raised garden beds in the right of way between the sidewalk and the street. So I don't really know much, and I want to clarify for these residents that are curious how that works. I know that maybe that's not something we can have now, but if it is something we can have later, that would be wonderful. Or any clarification now would be great too.
Gotcha. Gotcha. City staff, I'm sure we'll be able to get review the topic and get some feedback on that for us then.
Thank you.
Let's see. Vice Mayor Eke.
Well, I now that I have a dog, I seem to notice all sorts of things related to dogs, so and at the top of my list is that people pick up their dogs' gifts whenever, wherever that is. People are not doing that, and that is really painful because it just, it says to me, it's an issue of not just simply sensitivity, but respect for, other residents, So if you're going to have a dog and your dog decides to gift you whatever it's gifting you, please make sure you pick up your gifts so that I don't step in them in the dark or other people, in other people's lawns, especially mine.
Thank you. Commissioner Perschbacher.
Well, I have a couple of things. First is that because of the hot weather, obviously, we do have some cooling stations throughout the city. But I also want to remind people that if you are walking your dog, when the sidewalk is hot, it is hot on their feet. So the best thing to do is to walk them in an area like the park where they can walk on the grass, or to allow them to walk on the grass when you're walking down the sidewalk. I do want to read a letter that was sent to the city commission, and the mayor had responded saying that it would be brought to the city, but I noticed that it was just a footnote that it was brought in. So I'd like to read this letter for those that are not going to go in and read the packet, but that they know that this is here. And at this point, I would really like letters when they are sent in, especially when they're topics of what we've been talking about read to the city from the dais rather than just sticking them in the packet because sometimes they get lost in there. So this was emailed to us on June 24th of this year, and it says, "To the City Commission, I'm writing to request that the following concern be entered into public comment." And that is what I'm doing currently. I am the Executive Director of Outreach and the President of the Isabella Nonprofit Housing Corporation. Outreach owns 4 apartments that are managed by a locally owned management company. Emmanuel Village is a 26-unit complex owned by Emmanuel Lutheran Church and governed by the Isabella Nonprofit Housing and managed by Samaritas. Although I do not reside in the city of Mount Pleasant currently, I'm invested in the success of the city and have a vested interest. A situation recently arose involving Mayor Boomer Wingard and a residential lease held by the local nonprofit housing provider. After purchasing a home, the mayor sought to be released from his lease obligation without penalty. It is my understanding the property management company had offered assistance in locating a replacement tenant and mitigating the loss, but those efforts were not pursued. The matter was then brought directly to the nonprofit for consideration by Mayor Wingard. While no explicit threat was made, I felt significant pressure due to the reality that our organization relies heavily on cooperation and partnership with the city. Whether intended or not, the circumstances created an appearance that an elected official was seeking special consideration that would not typically be available to other tenants. I find this particularly concerning, given he was presented with a fair solution from the property management company, but chose to go this route. Further, he chose it during a time of the city's ongoing discussion regarding tenant rights, landlord obligations, and housing policy. At the time when our community is actively debating fairness and accountability within the rental housing system, it is inappropriate for a public official to seek relief from a contractual obligation based on personal convenience while participating in those broader discussions. I think that it is important that the community is aware. My concern extends beyond this individual situation. Contracts are the foundation of trust and accountability in any community. Residents are expected to honor the agreements they voluntarily entered or accept the consequences by ending those agreements early. Likewise, landlords are expected to honor their commitments and cannot simply discard a lease because a more profitable arrangement presents itself. The integrity of our housing system depends on both parties being held to the agreements they voluntarily make. Fairness requires that the same standard apply equally to everyone, regardless of title, influence, or position within the community. I do not offer this statement to assign motives or make accusations. Rather, I believe this incident is relevant to the public's understanding of those discussions. The community deserves to know not only what policies are being proposed, but also the perspectives and attitudes that may be influencing those policies. When an elected official seeks exemption from obligations that would ordinarily apply to any other tenant, it naturally raises questions about how fairness is defined and to whom that fairness is intended to apply. These are legitimate considerations for residents evaluating the direction of future housing policy. And it was signed respectively by Amy Powell, Executive Director of Outreach of Mid-Michigan and President of Isabella Nonprofit Housing Corporation. Thank you.
May I? I have a question for Amy. When you read that, can you tell us who was CC'd in on that as well when we got that? Do you have those names?
Who was CC'd?
Yes, who was CC'd in on it? I think for transparency, we should know who also was part of sending that. And there was 2 names CC'd. Do you know them?
There were 2 people that were CC'd in.
Yeah.
One of them, I believe she answered that to you.
Right, she did, but I'm asking you,
Yeah.
do you know those names? I think the public should know.
Nancy McGurk. And the other one was Tiffany Sloan Brokowski. I believe she stated that, open this up. There were so many emails that went back and forth. I believe one of them was the person that she had sent it to begin with, just to see if what she was saying was reasonable. I think that was Nancy's. And the other one was part of the nonprofit, I believe.
Thank you.
Before we get too deep into conversation, I want to give the other members of the commission, let's see, on that topic, their opportunity to speak. So next in order, we do have Commissioner Rollins.
Yes, why weren't the rest of us notified if this was something that needed to be brought up before the public and the rest of the commission?
It was an email sent to all of us.
When was that sent to us?
The 24th
Okay,
of June, or
6.
24th of June was the date of the letter.
okay. So I think we should give Mayor Wingard an opportunity to speak on this
Mhm.
also, along with the rest of us.
Sure. Continuing in our order, and if desired, we can go back around to give
Yeah.
everyone an opportunity to speak.
Mhm.
Commissioner Sklitsky?
I would like to thank the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe for their donation to the Isabella County Restoration House, so that way they could stay open as a cooling center for members of the community. That's just another way that they give back, and it's greatly appreciated considering these high temperatures that we're having, which brings me to a second point. Hydrate, 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 not just yourselves, but your pets. It's hot out there for them as well. They have lots of fur, lots of insulation, so make sure they have water as well. I find it strange that this is the letter that we choose to read, considering we've had numerous letters from members of the community for consideration for this commission. And those have not been dubbed important enough to read to the public to make sure that they are stated. It was fine that those were in the packets, their fear of being able to come forward, or the health issues that were being dealt with by some of the members of the community with mold in their apartments. But that's cool that renter or realtor TIF and Quality Apartments can have a spokesperson at the dais.
For myself, there was a letter submitted to the commission concerning a residential lease my wife and I had before we were privileged enough to buy our first home. This letter aggressively misrepresents normal communications between a landlord and a tenant. The reality is over half of Mount Pleasant's population rents their home, and there is a significant interest from landlords to kill any conversation around the rights and conditions of tenants in the city. I was elected to represent the best interests of the community, not to serve the interests of a vocal few. Our path forward remains clear, and the work will continue. Turning to staff, I wanted to request a copy of the Axon Technologies contract for review. Axon Technologies, like many companies that focus on digital technology, are implementing AI in many different aspects of their work. I'm interested to review their contract language and see if and how client information, files, images, and videos may be utilized in their AI trainings for their systems. To my fellow commissioners, we have crossed the halfway mark for the year, and we still have a busy schedule. 2 items of which I will ensure are on the next meeting's agenda are the chickens ordinance and work session regarding union-friendly language in our purchasing policies. Apologize for any delay on these items, but we'll work to address them in short order. Just as Commissioner Perschbacher made a recommendation to approve our standing agenda, I've also been considering some potential changes which I think could better improve our meeting structures. In the near future, I would like to bring these to the commission to further review and consideration. These items include staff reports, committee reports, and old business. And then lastly, for all our community members, please be sure to take care of yourselves and each other over the course of this week. We are experiencing another wave of very high temperatures, so stay out of the sun when you can. Drink plenty of water and fluids, and be sure to check in on your neighbors to make sure they are taken care as well. Is there any additional discussion members of the commission would like to have? Vice Mayor Eka.
I think that the letter that, we do have a copy of the letter that Commissioner Perschbacher referred to.
Yeah, I just wanted it on the public, let the public know. what we got.
Yeah. I would rather have had a conversation because this was sent to us. I would have preferred an opportunity where we could talk about it as opposed to having it at this point.
Right.
But this letter also, I read through it, and this letter also makes it, underscores why we need a tenants, why we need to address that, create a tenants right, either create a tenants, sorry, I'm talking to Commissioner Robinson, why we need to create a tenants right committee, or at least look into one, because we've had several tenants even come here and read, to us or send us letters. But having seen this and read, and read it and heard it right now, I am convinced that we do need to address this. In fact, somebody stopped me at actually Maury Court and said, yeah, what you're trying to do about tenants' rights is important. And they're telling me a whole range of stories about their experiences. Now, I am not taking any particular position, but I do think that this underscores the need for that. And then, of course, part of the, we've given the mayor an opportunity to say something, but I do want us as commissioners to think about this as we walk away. Hopefully we'll come back and talk about this. What I don't understand, what is not clear to me is whether the request was made to this particular, to the landlords by the mayor, as the mayor of Mount Pleasant, making a request to release me early, or as a resident.
Yeah, that was
which is
my next question.
Okay, well, and that's the, and so, but, so I do think, I don't want to draw any conclusions without additional conversation on this particular issue. And now that it is in the public domain, I do think we have a responsibility to talk about it and bring it into the conversation that we're having about tenants' rights. Okay, so as a renter, what right does Mr. Boomer Wingard, who is not a mayor, we're not thinking about, who is renting not as a mayor, have, as opposed to Ms. Powell reading this and saying, Mr. Wingard, who rented the property before becoming mayor, has rights or doesn't have rights? Does that person have rights? So I want us to think about that, and hopefully, I don't want to stay for another hour to talk about this. So I want to request that we place a conversation about this somewhere, to just address it in relation to the tenants' rights, if it is agreeable to the commission. I mean, because somehow we've been compelled to look at it now.
Right. I think that's a good idea.
Might I recommend a motion on that if that's,
No, you recuse yourself.
no,
because of the
no,
vote.
not myself making a
Okay.
motion, but I would like might suggest that if you.
I
wanted
would,
to-
yes, I would like to, I would make a motion that we include in the next commission meeting agenda, a conversation about this letter and in connection to the tenants' right committee.
Should we make that a work session?
I think we should make it a work session,
Yeah.
yes. Because that will give us time to have a robust conversation
I'll
about it.
second it.
Okay.
I would need to recuse myself on this vote, in particular. The work session, we can find out how well I can participate at. We'll have conversation with city attorney, I imagine, on whether or not, because it's something that directly pertains to myself. But in any case, the motion, again, the letter is to just avoid any kind of impropriety or anything, any concern there. I'll hand the gavel physically over to the vice mayor. At this
I
time.
get to hit this.
Commissioner Demarath, did you have anything in
Commissioner-
addition there?
Do you have something to say?
I guess if we're gonna have a work session, I can say it during then, but I also don't think we need a motion for a work session, but,
No, as an agenda item.
oh, well, okay. That's fine. Yeah, I can keep all my comments until then. That's fine. I do have them.
All right. All in support of including a conversation about a discussion of this letter related to tenants' rights as an agenda item at the next meeting, please signify by saying aye.
We need
Aye.
a second.
We need a second. Sorry.
Second.
Okay, I move. All right, okay. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, hearing none, the motion moves, passes. So this will go in as an agenda item in concert with the tenants' rights discussion. Thank you.
I also want to offer my apologies to Commissioner Skolitsky, who a moment ago I made jump down into the audience after he had to recuse himself on a topic there. When you hold the gavel, things really are different, I guess. In any case, that brings us to the end of announcements on city-related issues and new business, unless there was some other topic that members wanted to discuss other than my
Clerk.
lease at this time. Oh, yeah, Clerk Schmelzer, thank you.
Just a quick election update for the upcoming state primary. Registered voters in the city should have been received a postcard with a temporary change of the early vote center site. Just due to a delay in construction at Powers Hall, we did need to relocate the early vote site to the Student Activity Center at 360 East Broomfield Street. So early voting will the hours and the days will remain the same. And that being said, early voting will take place at the Student Activity Center, July 25 through August 2nd from 8 to 4 p.m. for all registered voters in the city and our partnering township, Union Township. We'll be back at Powers Hall for the general election in November.
Could you repeat the date and time again?
The date starts Saturday, July 25, and it runs through Sunday, August 2nd from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay. That brings us to public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. If you are a member of the public and would like to comment on any item on or off the agenda, please step up to the microphone. You will be given 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. If you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand feature to indicate you would like to speak. Any emails at this time? Any raised hands? Okay, and I'm not seeing anyone running up to the microphone. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. We have one item remaining on the agenda, and that is a closed session. There will be a recess in between and everything to clear the well, and we can take a few minutes break or so. But In order for us to proceed with closed session, we will need a motion with the full text read. Commissioner Alsager.
Here we go. All right, I move that we consider a closed session pursuant to section 8(1)(e) of the Open Meetings Act to consult with the city attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with pending litigation.
I'll second it.
Oh, do you want to, yeah.
Yeah, that microphone's not working.
And then once he's finished, if someone wants to propose a friendly amendment, since there was a motion in a second.
That is Mission Street Holdings LLC versus DJK Land Company et al., Isabella County Circuit Court Case number 25-21059-CH.
Can I just add that
Yeah,
comment
if you would
to
like,
my
yes.
motion?
I'll second the
Okay, yes.
amendment.
Or we'll consider it just the one motion since Commissioner Alsager added it on, and I believe Commissioner Sklitsky had initially seconded it. Did I track that correctly?
Yeah,
Did I?
I
Commissioner,
think so.
did we have
Yeah.
a second? I'm going to consider it Commissioner Sklitsky.
Okay.
Motion was made to enter into closed session pursuant to section 8(1)(e), the Open Meetings Act, with additional details. All those in favor, we are going to be called by roll vote. Please indicate by saying yes or no at the call of the clerk.
Commissioner Skilitsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins.
Yes.
Commissioner Alsager,
Yes.
Commissioner Demara,
Yes.
Commissioner Perschbacher,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Eke,
Yes.
Mayor Ringard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, motion passes. We are entering into closed session. The time is currently 9:10. We are going to take, let's do 10? Okay. We will resume at 9:20 in closed session.